This is Megan Walls, and she teaches for our Wheeler County schools, and she's always coming up with new and innovative ways to track things. So today you were sharing with us an idea you had to solve a problem. So why don't you start by talking about what your problems were that you were trying to solve?
Keeping track of data was becoming difficult because I would have a spot on each lesson plan that would indicate what data I wanted my peer pros to take, or which I would take on days I was at that school. But I was having 25 students in the county, I was getting 25 lesson plans a day. And so, keeping track of all the data from stats of paper was becoming very difficult. So what I did was I created a binder, and each school has a binder that organizes all my data. So they take the data that they're already tracking on the lesson plans and transcribe it here, so I have it in one place. And this makes it easier to go back right before an IEP meeting and make data graphs and charts and everything I would need to show parents in an IEP team. So my very first part, I have the IEP goals and objectives. All my goals, I'm going best practices with my goals and objectives, and they're all written in such a way that it can be measured, such as Katie will increase her letter word identification skills from grade level 1.2 to 3.0 as demonstrated by her school score on a single trial of the letter word identification subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson 3 academic test. The goal is almost always related to a subtest to measure grade level. Because the objectives, I do not want to test from the same subtest multiple times a year, or else there will be that test familiarity. Then I will set a standard such as when presented with 60 second grade doubt sight words one at a time, Katie will read the words aloud with 80 to 100% accuracy, and it increases. The idea being that if she gets through third grade doubt sight words, she'd be closer to achieving a 3.0 grade level on the Woodcock-Johnson test. And all of them are similar. If I want them to increase their grade level on a math fluency subtest, then I would expect them to increase their addition fluency or subtraction fluency throughout the year. So that's the very first part of my data binder. And this peer pros actually do not write on. It's just something I track as part of progress notes. Now, reading errors I use the corrective reading decoding program, and as they read, I or my peer pros will track their reading errors, and I separate them by decoding, self-corrections, omissions, sounds added, nonsense words, and I also added a column for total words. Now, the reason I keep track of all the individual errors is to see if there is a common pattern, like they're almost all decoding, then that tells me that we need to work on phonics. If they're all omissions, then maybe we need to slow down. I added the column for total words so that at the end of the year I can take their errors and divide them by the total words and get a percentage of how many words they read correctly, how many words, the percentage of words they decode incorrectly or self-correct or so on. Now, another curriculum I use is the specific skill set, which actually goes way back, and it's practice in a lot of different, more functional skills, such as locating answers, main idea, following directions, detecting sequence, drawing conclusions. My personal favorite is inferences, because I find that students on IEPs often have difficulty inferring unless they're explicitly taught it. And then they're put into the program based on reading level, which is the earliest is pick, then prep, and then it goes from A to L. Most of my kids tend to be between A and C. So what this table does is as they complete one, if they complete getting the facts section C, then I put the date of completion here, and so it helps me track so I don't give them the same booklet twice, which can happen when you have 25 kids and it's difficult to keep track. Now, the writing errors are very similar to the reading errors, where I just keep track of the kind of error they are making and then the number of sentences. And I actually have them write collaboratively online using sites such as Storybird or Story Jumper, so that they can actually make storybooks, which I find them using pictures really improves their writing because the pictures allow them to kind of think in sequence. Once they finish a story, then I print it out and put it under writing samples. This particular student has not finished a story yet. Moving on to math, I have math fluency, which just at the beginning of every period, they work on their fluency either with flashcards or an iPad app. And you can see I write the date and then their score. And for the most part, it increases, but not always. We always do see progress over time, though. Key Math progress is a little bit more intricate. I use the Key Math program, which I'm very happy with. It's very good at representing material. However, my one big complaint is, number one, you need to supply the concrete side and the manipulatives and that side. They're really good at the representational and abstract side. And then it also helps if you put in a reinforcer because there's not a lot of extra practice. So here I put the skill level that lesson is teaching. Here I put an activity which mostly comes from a book called Teaching Math to Students with LD. And there's I've pretty much had to make all the material because it was just a book, which I put in my math manipulative bag, which I carry all over the county. Suggested material for if a parapro is delivering this and they don't naturally know what kind of material is best to teach that skill, I'll put suggested material. So, for example, one-to-one correspondence, they may want to use sorting animals to teach that skill. The assignment, which is organized by concept cluster and lesson, and then the iPad reinforcer, which they would do after they've done all the worksheets, and they just need to make sure that skill is good and strong in their memories. That kind of learning to automaticity. And then there's the completion date and accuracy of independent work, just for my own information. So to take an example, let's say something like place value blocks. They would go through the lesson, working from the concrete to the representational to the abstract, and once they finish the worksheets, then they would practice that skill. I organize all my binders by that learning concept clusters such as numeration, adding, subtracting, multiplication, division, so on. So this particular one is under numeration, so I'm going to go to numeration. And you can see my suggested iPad apps are first base 10 blocks, which is right here. And this is an excellent iPad app in which you can practice your hundreds, tens, and ones. And you do that just by manipulating these blocks and counting. Now, for this one, that's not the only app I've suggested because this is more of an exploratory app. You can also go to the math apps and you can see that first grade math splash. So I go to first grade. I go to chapter 3, which is place value. So I'm going to go practice. Chapter 3, place value. And anything within this chapter is good practice for that concept. And actually they have a mixed review as well. And this is where you can go through and actually get accuracy in order to test, make sure they really do have the skill before you move on.
And do the paraprofessionals write down what their scores are and the accuracy?
There is a spot where you can write it down, yes. So then my next math area is problem solving. And I've gone through so many problem solving curriculum, and this is the first one I really have been happy with. And this is all on the iPad. I use the Singapore problem solving program. And so basically the table I've made just gives a line for every question. And so you can write down, you know, what level of support the student needed and how successful they were. And here is the actual program itself. You can see they have one for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So I'll go into 3rd grade. Actually, let me go into one where I can start from the beginning. I was playing on that one. So here's grade 4. You press play. You pick out your character.
Let's go.
It's very fun, very cool graphics and interactive. I go to whole numbers, which you can see it coordinates right here. Whole numbers, number 1. That's what I'm pressing now. Problem 1. And then you read the question. They have an example video of someone solving a very similar question. And then you use the whiteboard to solve it and enter the answer. And that is my problem solving curriculum. And it also brings us to the end of my data binder. Are there any questions?
Is this something you think that other teachers could replicate or borrow and a model of and use?
Oh yes, actually everything that I've made for this binder is also located on my LifeBinder website, so any teacher who happens to be on LifeBinders can just pick up and steal everything I've made. And of course, because most of the data tables are generic, the only ones that are specific to a program are the key math ones, and then the ones that use these iPad apps.
Okay, and so you'll send me the live binder location and we'll put it together with this video.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.